a great privilege to have the military medicine keynote here and keynote panel discussion. So I ask from Dr. Roy and colleagues on the panel to join us. Okay. Yes, Kaiser, please join us, yes. We're going to have Kaiser, you sit here. Kaiser, you sit here. Yeah. She will sit here. You sit over there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so Dr. Yeah, you have enough chairs, I guess. Okay, fabulous. Okay, so for our online viewers, we are welcoming a great panel of experts and advocates, including our rock star, Kaiser. If you have not listened to her music and followed her on a YouTube and social media and so on, so millions of fans, including myself, sign up. Yeah, so, and former military, of course. So, so we're going to quickly go around and introduce ourselves. So again, the ladies are first. So Kaiser, go first. Yeah, you can push it.
Press the button. Hi, I'm Kaiser. I'm a singer, and I went through a 7-year recovery from a car crash, which left me with a traumatic brain injury. And that's how I got involved in this whole community. And the process of my recovery has just been really wild. But it took me many years to come back to where I'm at now, which is I'm finally back on stage dancing again, which I thought I never would be. So yeah, it's because of neural communities like this that I was able to get back to where I am now. So just very honored to be here and share my story.
Fabulous. Thank you. Dr. Potapova, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is... Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Katerina Potapova. I'm assistant professor at Neurology Department, Bogomolets National Medical University, Kyiv, Ukraine. Coming here to share our knowledge, to share our story, how to be a human during the war.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Roy, please. Should keep it. Yeah.
Okay. Mike Roy, I'm a professor of medicine and deputy director of the Military Traumatic Brain Injury Initiative at Uniformed Services University. Been chairing the military medicine track for a long time. I think I started in 2007 with the society, and it's always a pleasure to be here and to consider weighty issues and to try to improve the lives of service members, veterans, and patients.
Fabulous. Go ahead, please.
I'm Adam Hamway. I'm a former trauma surgeon and plastic surgeon. I used to be with the U.S. Army, and currently been basically doing a lot of humanitarian work around the world, recently in the Middle East and Gaza. And I am here to basically share my experiences.
Fabulous, thank you. Okay, Dr. Ken Green, go ahead.
Okay, got it. Hi, I'm Dr. Ken Green. I'm a retired Navy commander, and too many things to talk about, but a retired dentist, anesthesiologist, and aerospace physiologist, aviation and patient safety teacher, and had my own encounter on the knife end of a neurosurgeon, not traumatic brain injury, acquired brain injury, and advocate for communication and improved teamwork for decision-making improvements, and Slava Ukraine.
Great. Dr. Kaiser.
Good afternoon. My name is Dave Kaiser. I'm a veteran and neurophysiologist and have been on faculty at the Uniformed Services University School of Medicine since the way early 2000s, and for the most part, have been concentrating on blast exposure and special operations.
Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Stab. My name is Doug Morris. I'm a professor of radiology and bioengineering at Uniformed Services University. This is a privilege here to attend this conference because it gives me a lot of ideas for new applications, which we'll be showing in our neuroimaging section today. So thank you very much.
Fabulous. Great, great. So in this panel today, we will discuss what are the latest and greatest in detection and obviously prevention and treatment of traumatic brain injury, from car crash to even combat casualty care. So, and if we can limit our kind of talk to a few minutes to just provide the gist of the recent advances, that would be great. And also identify area of the gap. What are the gap issues? Is it a policy? How can we improve, better care or better prevention of neurotrauma, either through policy or technology or advocacy? So, but before we move to that discussion, we have a 3 to 4 minutes presentation by Dr. Potapova. So I would like to make sure that we capture the actual presentations. So Dr. Potapova, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Kader. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here today and share the story that is often left untold. Is a story how to be a doctor, how to be a human during the war. Here is the photo that I took just before a few hours full-scale invasion has begun. This is my son, lies peacefully in a bed, lullaed to sleep by the soft melody of lullaby. So I saw explosion outside my window at 5 a.m., heard the roar of aircraft in aviation, and watched Putin announcement of war in my phone. Kyiv was paralyzed. Hundreds of thousands fled, blocking highways, overwhelming train station. Some left the countryside only to face occupation or forced death. No one knew the right way. No one knew what to do. Men enlisted by the thousands receiving weapons from the distribution point across the city to defend Kyiv. And these scenes like from the history books unfolded before my eyes. Not stories of World War II, the story about 21st century Europe. Life split into two eras, before 21st of February 2022 and after. And just there were no manual of war, so there was no guidebook how to be a mother during the war. And how to protect a child from explosion, what kind of shelter ensures we won't be buried under the rubble if a missile strikes, what do you do if a tank stops in front of you. That was just began, and we found some answers to some questions, but security is something that we are still building. Just a month ago, part of missile drone fell onto my son's kindergarten. And it was at night, so no casualties among their staff and children. But I'm still have a question. Am I still a good mother if I expose my child to stay in a daily danger by choosing to stay in Ukraine? I don't think that you have an answer to this. As many Ukrainians, despite ongoing instability, I choose to stay in Ukraine, to be a doctor, scientist, and helping civilians and soldiers. Today in Ukraine, we have thousands of injured veterans and soldiers, civilians. We have a lot of problems with mental health challenges, rehabilitation needs. Here's a photo of my patients. And reintegration of veterans into society is one of the biggest challenges that we right now met. So I'm thankful to our partners, Society of Brain Mapping and Therapeutic, and also other partners as GMKA and WHO, Harvard Humanitarian Initiative. We translated ATLS, the whole book, deployed medicine, and published it online for free in a website. Also, we printed it and sent to the front line to our doctors there. Also, we conducted hand-on trainings supported by Society of Brain Mapping and Therapeutic and Sander Foundation, and also 6 additional TCD units come to Ukraine and right now in different regions help our doctors in the front line. Also, we worked on mobile applications that connected doctors worldwide and received award in the biggest technology conference. So right now, I want to say that I'm here, stand in front of you in the United States in a defining moment for Ukraine. I ask each of you to reflect on what I have shared. Look into your own understanding of justice and security. A peace for Ukraine is not just about our country. It's about protecting the world, entire world. Ukraine has paid for independence with blood and lives. Justice for Ukraine means security for every nation that values sovereignty and human dignity. Peace must be more than words on the papers. It must be backed by real guarantees, guarantees that ensure that next generation will never have to pay the price we have paid. This is why Ukraine must receive the support it deserves. Thank you so much.
All right, well, you know, I have seen my share of wars. I was a combat medic, so I've been exposed to horrible, you know, war situations. So, but with that in mind, I start from our colleague and friend who actually served in the front line in the Middle East. So, your thoughts on, obviously, prevention of war is the best way to prevent casualties and neurotrauma, that's for sure. But you know, in the situations that are just absolutely horrible, you know, how can we use the least amount of technology to get the best, I would say, outcome in the patients? So you did it with almost nothing, you know?
Thank you very much. Again, I was just saying that I'm surprised to be sitting up here, but I will do my best to contribute it. So I think what we have today are, you know, technology is becoming more mobile and accessible. So, you know, first we have to go to the basics, and with anything that we diagnose, we have to actually be looking for it first. And the first thing is an understanding of what we're trying to treat and to look for it. And so first thing is awareness, and neurotrauma is a significant concern, obviously, in military medicine. But what often goes unseen is the psychological scars that accompany these injuries. 20 years ago, when I was a trauma surgeon, basically, our goal was damage control, save the life, get the person to live another day. But after that, you know, what exists, you know, and how do you have a normal life? How do you integrate in society? And one of the reasons I went into plastic surgery is to reconstruct people and give them that normal life. And likewise, with neurotrauma, PTSD is one of the most challenging things to address. It comes with a lot of stigma. It often goes unrecognized. We don't look for it. And we have, even here in the United States, you know, soldiers and Marines that are 20 years later that have been in wars like in Iraq that have undiagnosed PTSD because no one looks for it. And we're basically relying on self-reports, we're relying on clinical interviews, and if it's not addressed, we don't treat it. But again, technology and awareness allows us to move on. I mean, like just with basic technology, we have functional MRIs now. We have PET scans that could look for biomarkers. We can't take that to Ukraine or to the Middle East, but the awareness that it's there allows us to go a step further. You know, there's even the use of AI with our iPhones now, like recognizing speech patterns, looking at facial recognition, and even analyzing someone's social media is allowing us to basically flag someone for PTSD. So I think the first thing is awareness. You know, we're not going to be able to treat what we don't see. We're not going to see if we don't look for it. And then work with what we have. I mean, that's the only thing we could do. I mean, if it's basically clinical support and, advice, we don't need a lot of technology for that. If it's something that we could carry in our pocket with an iPhone, then let's make that available and educate our doctors and nurses and healthcare workers here and abroad on how to implement them.
Fabulous. Great points. Well, Dr. Roy, you have been treating traumatic brain injury and PTSD for a long time at the Uniformed Services University in Bethesda, Maryland. So just kind of following up on that question, and how are you treating the PTSD and neurotrauma differently and with the use of technology?
Thank you, and I completely agree with all that's been said. I spent 24 years in the Army and really have spent my entire career focused on PTSD and TBI and more recently subconcussive blast exposure, because those are the greatest threats I see to the health of our service members and our veterans. And we spend billions on the care of PTSD every year. So at a time when we're very focused on trying to limit our budget, save money, and so forth, it's important to remember that when we find better treatments for PTSD or for TBI, that can save a lot of money. The therapies that we have available right now are generally not all that great. Most people don't want to continue with them, they don't respond to them, but we are finding evidence that there are better treatments, and we can save a lot of money by supporting that kind of research, by conducting that research, so that we can prevent the missed work time, the loss of function in the home, at work, with families, that impact the service members and veterans and their entire families. And these therapies that we're testing, like reconsolidation of traumatic memories, 3MDR, walk and talk therapy for PTSD, we can and we are exporting that to Ukraine so it can help people there as well. And this society is one that really helps to bring people together, to help make some of these significant advances in identifying conditions earlier, to be able to prevent complications and to treat them.
Fabulous. Thank you. Well, from the kind of a patient experience, I would say, what was your experience of traumatic brain injury, and kind of how did you cope with it? Can hold it.
Just hold it. Hi. It's a very long question. I could probably talk for hours about that, but the first experience was the loss of identity. When you go through a brain injury, you do not feel like yourself. Your brain and your body don't connect in the same way. Emotionally, you don't respond in the same way, and people don't respond to you. And so there's this sense of not knowing who you are. And that brings on this sort of state of panic, of not knowing. You live in this state of confusion of not knowing how long it will take to heal, if you will ever heal, if you'll ever get your life back. And so you fall into this sort of state of denial where you cling to your former self. And then it's just this continued sort of stress loop that really I found prevented my healing the most. So when I was finally able to accept my reality, I think that's when my healing really began. And I realized the impact of psychology on the healing of the brain. Because if you are in a panic state, you just aren't in a state to heal. And so for me, what I started to learn was getting my body and my mind in a position to actually put my body in a state that it could heal. And that included aggressive diet changes, like lifestyle changes completely. But there isn't really a lot of support out there for people going through this. You really have to go at it alone in a lot of ways. You go to your hospital or your neurologist and they tell you as much as they can, but ultimately your experience is very personal because every brain injury is so different. So you become your own Sherlock Holmes, and depending whether you're able to navigate that or not, because you know, when you have a damaged brain, it is the same thing that you're thinking with, and it doesn't always work the way you want it to. It's just this really long process of being patient with yourself. It's really the hardest thing I've ever gone through, and I lost my career for many years over it. I struggled to come back. I tried so many times and failed, and but really it was having community and going out. I was very lucky because I was in a position where people knew who I was. A lot of people came to me when they found out. A lot of people I know don't have that opportunity. They're stuck on their own. So I would love to help create community and more places for people that don't know what to do, where they can go to find information. And I lost the ability to read for a long time, so a lot of the information you need, you have to go read, and I wasn't able to do that. So there's just a lot of the navigating brain injuries is for people who don't have them, and so it's like finding ways to make information accessible to people who have these disabilities as well, because a lot of the people also like helping to heal people don't have them either. So having the perspective, I think having this perspective has really helped me also communicate to others. Anyways, yeah, I could honestly talk for so long about my experience, but I will pass it on.
Fabulous, fabulous. We'll come back to that. I have a follow-up question on the music and the brain, but Dr. Kaiser, you have helped us to develop this program with Dr. Roy for 4 days. We're talking about the program we developed. So what are the kind of highlights of the neurotrauma program this year at the convention? And what are the new clinical trials or new technologies that was discussed, if you don't mind, please?
One of the things that sticks in my mind very much is the fact that one, machine learning and artificial intelligence are not new concepts, all right? But I'm not the expert when it comes to machine learning and artificial intelligence. And I recognize as an older gentleman in this field and as someone who has done research and simple statistics, et cetera, that we're generating huge databases these days that I can't adequately extract the information that needs to be pulled from it. So what I would suggest to all of us is to pony up with those individuals who are at the forefront of technology and applying this new technology with machine learning and artificial intelligence. And more times than not, this does mean that we're leaning on the younger generation these days. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. The other thing that I wanted to comment on here is I had invited 3 U.S. Navy SEALs to speak at this meeting. Unfortunately, 2 of them over the holidays had family tragedies, and we had to cancel that. But one of the messages that they wanted me to send here today and this week is that transitions are very difficult for the military. And in particular, when you're looking at special operations where these individuals can train for weeks and months for a 24 to 48 hour mission, and then come back and 12 hours later find themselves behind someone at Walmart, and they have very difficult times dealing with transitions from one state to another. And it's not just from being in uniform and retirement, although that is a huge transition. But in their honor, I wanted to bring that and put it in front of everyone, and keep that in mind when it comes. Neuronal trauma isn't always just blasts and bullets. Neuronal trauma can come in many types and impact the strongest individuals that we have on this earth. So thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. speaking of big data and big, massive data that we have to deal with, from the neuroradiology standpoint, tell us how are you dealing with it now, and what do you like to, or do you think AI or type of supercomputing can help?
Thank you. We already are using machine learning and deep learning applications and validating them for service in the military and in other platforms. One of the applications that we're validating at Walter Reed right now speeds up the time that it takes for a patient to undergo MRI scans by an order of magnitude. So this basically accelerates throughput through what limited resources we have, but they also can be used in deployable systems that are now thankfully coming onto the market, where basically we can use very small low-field systems to go not only to rural American areas, but throughout the world, using these applications to enhance image quality and to speed image diagnosis. So all of these, thankfully, have been due to active interest by DoD and military health systems.
Fabulous, fabulous. That's great. That's great. So we go to Dr. Ken Green, and Ken was a commander in Navy and was running the Navy research for a long time, and also part of our humanitarian mission to Ukraine. So very quickly, tell us about, I know you can expand on that,
I'm
but
going
I
to
want to...
get spanked or slapped on the hand for this, but the people here, the survivors, the researchers like Dr. Roy and Dave, and the other people, the heroes in this room, Dr. Potapova, living in real wartime situation. The research that Dr. Roy mentioned, that ongoing research that's necessary, that, as he described, will save money by reducing the amount of after effects of TBI and PTSD. So if DOGE wants to save money, they will increase research, not try and cut it. And if our dear leader had half a brain, we could do some research on that half a brain and find out, something about this. But, I had an experience that I was fortunate enough to travel to Ukraine a little over a year ago and meet the other heroes that are there now, and some are going to be here tonight. And I recently met some other heroes who were here. They were amputees who were in the country to get new prosthetics, more advanced prosthetics than were available in Ukraine. And it's just inspirational to see when Dr. Potapova mentioned that her son, kindergarten, suffered a missile attack, luckily at night, but can you imagine, those of you with children, that you had to think about your child, school being under attack? It's just, it's unimaginable to me. I have a grown daughter in school, but, just to think of that is just, and that, she's here with us now. She's a hero to be here, and we have to support her and all the research that the other heroes in this room are doing, because you are the heroes that are advancing science and medicine and healthcare for the benefit of people, and we have to promote that in every way we can and stand up to any efforts to squash that. So that's my statement.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. I think supporting research is important, and also sound policy is what we need to make sure that the policies that are made based on data is not one based on someone's feelings. So, so coming back very quickly, we have a few minutes. I wanted to ask from Kaisa how music has impacted your brain recovery, because that's part of the Dr. Roy's actually program at Uniform Services. So, so how can we use music to get better with our brain?
Well, I will say, as a musician and someone who writes music, it was quite fascinating how I could listen to some music and not others. Very chaotic music, it just couldn't compute with my brain anymore. Whereas like really classical music and simple music it would actually put me in a state where I felt like I was actually healing more. The cool thing about having a brain injury is your brain is so sensitive, you start to become really aware of what is good and bad for your brain. Just in everyday life, and things that I thought were easy for the brain, like sitting in a room full of people, were actually the things that would trigger my brain the most. And I realized your brain is always scanning everything and computing everything. So, but music, going through a brain injury, the internal chaos, I'd say, is one of the hardest things to navigate. And music is something that can put you in a flow state, and it can actually center and ground you. I've actually in my journeys I've actually bumped into people who are doing research on music and showing that if you can find a sound that matches the state that the person's in, then start moving them to another state. As long as you can match it to where they're at, then you can move them to where you want them to go. So there's some really incredible research on how music affects the brain. But even just being somebody who writes music, I found that it was one of the crucial parts of my healing, because trying to get back into my career as a musician, it forced me to have to start reading again, slowly. Melody, I started writing melodies that were simple to me, but it actually computed a lot more with the people listening, which was very interesting, and simplicity is so important. But yeah, as somebody who still lives with a brain injury, the second that the wrong sound or a very chaotic sound comes on, and my whole brain still glitches. So finding the right harmonics, I do really heavily believe that certain vibrations make a huge difference, and I really would love to explore that so much more. I'd love to actually talk with you later, but
Collaboration started.
yeah,
right here.
yeah, absolutely,
I like that.
absolutely. That's why I'm
It's been
here.
a rock star and a scientist.
Yeah. And I think about how can I bring that into my live shows, like now that I know the effect that it has on me as somebody who lives with a brain injury. Well, what effect is the music that I'm playing having on my audience, and what tones and frequencies can I change to actually help my audience as well? Because I like to think about the fact that if I can add a little bit of healing to a room full of a few thousand people here and there, that's something I really want to explore.
Fabulous, fabulous. That's great. So, okay, so we are a little bit over time, but so we go rapid fire, 30 seconds, kind of message on neurotrauma. So, Dr. Roy, anything you want to make a
So
comment?
one thing I'd note as Ukraine is fighting for their freedom and their lives, think about what you might be able to do to help them. So we recently sent 5 transcranial Dopplers there that we'd been using in our research, and it wasn't as useful in our subconcussive blast setting as it is to them in trying to save lives in the ICUs across the hospitals. So we sent them to Dr. Potapova. She distributed them to various hospitals, and they're getting good use. So think about technologies you may have that you've used and so forth that perhaps could be put to better use there. I implore you to do that. Thank you.
Dr. Potapova.
Thank you. Additional comment to Dr. Roy's statement that if you want to be a part of project of observership for Ukrainian doctors and your institution want to join this, just text me, call me, or whenever we will engage you in this project. And also more information about how we treat multi-trauma, how we treat TBI and others interesting knowledge. We will share tomorrow at room 406B. Second floor at 8 a.m. So you are welcome to join. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Hamawi.
You know, some of the best advances in medicine have been happening basically in military medicine in wartime. That's how we see leaps and bounds in how we're taking care of patients. And right now, military medicine is no longer just confined to service members and veterans, but we see more and more around the world that civilian populations are being caught up in war and being affected. So when we're talking about blast injuries for, you know, what our service members are experiencing just firing the weapons, imagining on the receiving end of some of these weapons and bombs and what that is affecting and what the blast radius is. So what we are trying to do research here is not just military medicine, it's really world medicine, and part of what we need to do is figure out how we're going to deploy it to these places so that we could help the most amount of people, whether it's in Ukraine or in Palestine or anywhere else.
That's well said, and actually you have also a foundation or a group that we would be happy to work with and on the humanitarian mission from Ukraine, the humanitarian mission that we had to the Middle East or wherever, we are needed as an organization. So we go to Dr. Ken Green, 30 seconds, whatever you want to say. I know you have a lot in your mind.
Yeah, you don't want to hear what I have to say. I tell you that I'm permanently banned from Twitter/X. I'm in jail and Facebook right now, so you don't want to hear what I have to really say. But maybe you do, but not here in public. The TCDs, the transcranial Dopplers that were donated by Dr. Roy, my colleague Alex Razumovsky, and I, when we traveled to Ukraine, he did some training with the TCDs that we had at that time. If you have other, there are other supplies that you might have surplus. They can't be expired, but things that you just may possibly have a surplus of that you would wish to donate, we can get them to Ukraine. I'm personally happy to deliver them myself. But there's a need for a lot of things, and I could give you a list if anyone wants to approach me about that. The last thing I would just say is that, support the research. As was said in the last plenary, engage your students and encourage them to get involved in new and exciting avenues of research. It may seem abstract and, out there, but we see that science fiction is becoming reality in so many different areas. And I would have hoped that we could have had Elon Musk here as the Neuralink, because I could have done a demonstration on penetrating his brain and inserting something in there that would have not been helpful. Maybe next year.
Okay. Go ahead.
Dr. Katab, I'm actually going to use the same answer to a different question that I gave you last year, but I think it's more pertinent this year, and that is simply we all need to use our voice and be heard. Everybody needs to be clamoring on their congresspersons and on their senators, and we have to use our voice to get it across, because this is just not okay.
Thank you. Professor?
So I'm going to give you a little something that is to kind of look up for. So in neurotrauma and brain imaging, in the next 5 years, we're going to be basically taking and applying everything that we've invested over the last decade. You're going to find new biomarkers. We already have new biomarkers that we've developed for white matter imaging for TBI, where you're going to be developing some of these for blast-related injuries. And all of these things are going to be driven by investments that DOD has made in medical imaging, with putting new platforms out that will be available clinically next year. There will also be additional machine learning tools and development methods that will be able to be deployed to your clinics and to be able to be deployed in places around the world and to the field. So stay tuned, stay informed, and yes, use your voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Kaiser?
Well, I'll just close by saying thank you all for everything that you're doing, because as somebody who lives with a brain injury, I rely on people like you to survive and to move forward in my life, and I'm just so appreciative of all of you, like heroes, as you were saying. So, yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to thank the panel and agree that we all have to use our voice and network to make sure the policies toward brain research, at least, is followed based on data. And also, please visit our exhibition hall. We have companies who have a new generation of MRI with a 0.5 Tesla magnet, with actually the Synaptive Medical, which has an AI function to it, so you can actually MRI patients with brain implants in them. So with that, I close the session and also announce that the Bioskills Lab will continue about 15 minutes in our cadaver lab in the outside of the exhibition hall. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, and thank you for seeing us online.